We turn now to a even more specific focus on affordable housing opportunities in relation to house of worship properties. We'll have two presentations on that. The first is by Catherine Fisher, a licensed clinical social worker, trainer, and program consultant. She did her PhD in social welfare and social research at Loma Linda University. Her research interests include women experiencing homelessness, low-income housing, faith-based partnerships, and community development. She's going to discuss her survey of a variety of affordable housing strategies. Catherine?
Thank you, Dr. Frank, and it's really good to be here. I'm going to be presenting my findings. My paper basically summarizes findings from my doctoral research. And really, the purpose of my research was to examine congregations that partnered to develop affordable housing and determine what were best practices in the planning, in the construction of these projects. And I also was looking at the role of congregation members' social capital. I conducted surveys and online interviews with 33 congregations that completed projects anywhere between 2010 and up and through 2023. I'm going to share some of the key lessons that were highlighted by pastors, clergy, deacons, and affiliated congregation nonprofit leaders. The first lesson that was a strong theme and was really focusing on the first phase, which is the congregation decision process. And that was the key lesson of the importance of involving and engaging congregation members in reimagining the use of their sacred space or underutilized property, and taking time to get their input and to vote in as part of the decision-making process, really taking that time. Without unifying the congregation around that vision, the project risks failure. Pastors cited other churches nearby who, when they encountered challenges with forming that developer partnership, the congregation either gave up, backed out, or in other cases, it resulted in splitting the church, where half of the congregation might have left because they disagreed with the decision to build affordable housing. Another key lesson was that leaders must be prepared for the time, commitment, perseverance, and challenges involved in embarking in doing development. The average time between project start and project completion was an average of 6 years. One pastor said, "You need to be prepared to enter a political fight." I'll say more to that in a few minutes. Another key lesson was in the pre-development planning, the importance of choosing the right developer to partner with. Most churches partnered with a nonprofit developer who was a larger organization that had some years of experience and familiarity with that city in doing and constructing affordable housing and applying for the low-income tax credits. Affordable housing, 80% of my projects used affordable housing tax credits to fund the project. Quickly, some other best practices was the importance of negotiating the partnership terms, the land use agreement, and many cited using ground leases as a way for the congregation or diocese to maintain control and influence over the design of the building and preserving the long-term affordability of those apartment units, those housing units. Many recommended using ground leases for 55 to 75 years in a joint partnership with that developer. That was used in about 10 out of my 33 cases. Another best practice was the importance of repeated engagement with the local community residents to build trust, to gain their support, and to provide counter messaging. My research examined the barriers encountered and strategies used to overcome those barriers. The strongest barrier to congregations developing affordable housing is neighborhood opposition. 39% of my congregations reported moderate to severe neighborhood opposition, mostly stemming from single homes, single neighborhood resident associations. Only 9% reported issues with city zoning, city regulations, and gaining planning approval. However, my interview data showed that there was some significant organizing and negotiating with the city to get density waivers, to get zoning variances approved. Lastly, social capital turned out to be a very significant strategy to overcome neighborhood opposition. My survey found that congregation members' existing relationships with local community groups, local politicians, and their volunteer networks showing up at city council meetings to speak out. In one case, some of the neighborhood passed around the message that the low-income housing was going to bring in gang members and lead to more community violence. And the United Methodist Church tapped into their social networks. 200 United Methodist Church members and allies showed up at that council meeting to get that project approved. And that's where these projects really end up dying, is at the city council level. Lastly, I'll just say my paper presents, interestingly enough, while some churches were declining or closed, other churches reported that the affordable housing development, creating senior housing, low-income housing for families, actually resulted in congregation revitalization. That congregations attracted new members, developed new community partnerships, created a new vision, and new relevance to the community. And that affordable housing sometimes also served mixed use purposes, housing nonprofits on the first floor, engaging in social service supports to those tenants, those low-income residents, was very meaningful. So social capital is a vital, important part for political engagement and for gaining community support. Thank you, and look forward to sharing more as my paper gets put out on the Canopy Forum.